Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'd like to take a look at some upcoming Greninja decks from the set Twilight Masquerade. So for those of you who don't know what Greninja does, it's a 310 HP fighting type Pokemon, so a little bit on the low side admittedly for a attacking stage 2 EX, but still a lot of HP, right? 310 is still quite a lot. And it has two really good attacks, Ninja Blade and Duplicate's Barrage. Ninja Blade for a single water energy does 170, which is still bananas to me. Crazy power creep, but either way, 170, an awful lot of damage. And you may search your deck for any card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. And then the second attack for a water double colorless says Duplicate's Barrage, says discard 2 energy from Greninja, and then you do 120 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So you can choose the active Pokemon, or if your opponent doesn't have like a Manaphy in play, I guess, then you can do 120 snipe to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon and knock out stuff like Bibarel or Charmeleons. So, very, very nice attack indeed. Now, I'm just going to get some thoughts out of the way of Greninja, my personal thoughts out of the way immediately. I personally don't think Greninja will be as good as some people think it will be, but I just don't think it will be bad at all. I think it gets a bit outclassed by Dragapult in terms of the whole spread EX stage 2 deck. But I still think Greninja is a very cool Pokemon, and there's a lot of room for some very cool Greninja decks, as we'll see in this video. So yeah, very cool card overall. But yeah, just very quickly, some new options to take a look at. There is the Blood Moon Ursaluna, which you could play. Hyper Roma is also another one, just for finding things like Frogadiers and Bibarels, if you really want to play it. And the Cornerstone Ogerpon EX, and we'll see like a load of Vulpix in one or two of these lists, but Ogerpon EX might not be such a terrible option just to wall out Charizard, at least in the early game. Also Boomerang Energy, potentially, but to be honest, most of these lists aren't playing Boomerang Energy because it's just a wee bit too awkward being a special energy, even though you can find it with the first attack, but it's just the fact that it's not really contributing to the attack cost in any major way, so it gets a bit awkward when you try to involve the special energy. But it's still a cool option and something worth considering. But this first list is going to be a fairly straightforward build with Pidgeot and Rotom with Luminion. This is kind of like what you'd expect to see from a Charizard build, so it is kind of like a bit boring in that sense. But, for those of you who are more familiar with Pidgeot builds, this will be, should be right at home with this list. And, playing stuff like Neo Upper Energy is quite interesting to me because it's just essentially allowing you to pay for the full effect of Duplicate's Barrage with an additional water energy without getting like the reduction from Double Turbo, which I think is really cool. This list is also playing a Radiant Alakazam, which I think is quite cool. So Alakazam will allow you to move around damage counters on your opponent's bench, so hopefully get to KO some bigger Pokemon like Radiant Greninja, funnily enough, which has 130 HP, which can be a bit annoying to KO. So yeah, that's really cool. So yeah, honestly, a really cool list. There's nothing too crazy in the trainer department that's, I guess, a bit different. EXP share, I would say, is actually quite surprising, but aside from that, I would definitely do well just because, you need to conserve basic energy really in this deck. It's a bit awkward most time, but yeah. Either way, seems like a very consistent list and definitely like just one of the most consistent lists that we'll look at today. So yeah, great starting point for Greninja. Next up, though, is, apologies I couldn't find a clearer image of this, but this is basically just Greninja Bibarel and not much else. It's just Greninja with a 2-2 line of Bibarel, and then there's a Manaphy, a Rotom, and a Radiant Blastoise EX. Which, for those of you who don't remember what Radiant Blastoise does, which, fair enough, it's been a while, I believe it says, and I will have to double check this very quickly if it's wrong, but you get to discard a water energy from your hand and place 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. I think that's what Blastoise does. So this is kind of like a direct counter to Radiant Greninja, I suppose. It's a bit like Radiant Alakazam. I'm not sure if it's strictly better than Alakazam or just worse. Honestly, I think Alakazam might just be a wee bit better, but I guess there's like rare situations where you might want to attack with Blastoise, but to be honest, at that point, I'd rather just like play Palkia in the deck if I wanted to try and do that. So it's still a really cool option, but it's like definitely the thing that makes this list stand out from everything else, apart from the fact that Greninja is your main attacker, Most of these lists do play at least one other attacker. This list does not, right? It's playing Radiant Blastoise and calling it a day. But either way, the trainers are pretty consistent. We're playing 4s of nearly everything, and the stuff we're not playing 4s of, it's pretty understandable why we're not. Things like 1 counter catcher, 1 boss, 1 prime catcher. I'm not a huge fan of that kind of situational plays, but the fact that Greninja can just find any one card anyway, I suppose it doesn't really matter. Plus, you have Rotom to help find stuff in the early game, so not too much of an issue there. But yeah, either way, a pretty cool list overall, and just, very consistent and straight to the point. But yeah, do worry about Bibarel with Dragapult EX, but Bibarel should still be pretty good against everything else. Next up, though, is we do have a Palkia Vulpix build. Still playing Bibarel, but some of these lists did come out before Japan got their full Twilight Masquerade set. So, this was like pre-Dragapult era, I guess. But yeah, Palkia and Vulpix, still really cool to see these guys. I think Palkia is honestly just a really good idea. Not only does it ramp energy, but it's also just a really nice secondary attacker. And it's still quite a chunky boy at 280 HP. So definitely think Palkia is a great partner for Greninja. Definitely one that I would personally like to try out quite a bit. And the Alolan Vulpix is, of course, just fantastic against things like the Ogerpon as well as Charizard. So do respect that quite a bit. And you can get away with playing Vulpix in this deck over stuff like the Corner Stance Ogerpon that we talked about earlier, because we are playing basic Water Energy. We can't attack with this Vulpix. So, that's cool. So yeah, pretty cool list overall. Again, playing the Prime Catcher over New Up Energy, which is kind of understandable just because you have other attackers that aren't just Greninja. But yeah, very cool list overall. Definitely be interested in trying this one out. Next up, though, is we have, unfortunately, another sort of blurry image. If you want to know what certain cards are, just let me know in the comment section and I'll validate that. But I'm pretty sure that's 2 Boss's Orders next to the 2 Aerono down there. But yeah, that's the only one, by the way, that I think is a bit unclear. But either way, this is a Greninja Garchomp list. Now, the synergy here, I'm guessing, is that Garchomp has a similar efficient attack, doing 160 for a single fighting energy, and then accelerates 3 basic fighting energy from the discard pile to one of your Pokemon. Which I can kind of see the synergy because, it powers up itself to use its own snipe attack that does 120. Well, I think, does Garchomp do 120 as the snipe? Pretty sure it does. It's either 120 or 200. I can't think it would be 200, but yeah. Garchomp either way has a very good snipe attack. That's all you need to know about Garchomp if you don't know what it does already. But for 2 colors energy, it's pretty good. But Greninja needing water double colors to do a different snipe attack. I mean, I can see the synergy here. And, you could lead with a Greninja to snipe Pokemon and then, discard energy. And then your next Garchomp basically accelerates energy back to use more duplicates barrage. That does kind of make sense. But playing 2 stage 2s feels a bit awkward when it's not Pidgeot. But I don't know. We're also playing like a 2-2 line of Bibarel. So maybe it's not too bad. We're also playing Raining Greninja. Got the Prime Catcher in here. Yeah, maybe with Irida, it's just really easy. But obviously you can't Irida for Greninja, which is quite funny. But yeah, still really cool though. I do like the whole reverse thing where Garchomp is a water type needing fighting energy and Greninja is a fighting type needing water energy. It's a cool reverse. But yeah, can definitely see the synergy here. Next up though is we have a Lost Zone build. I won't spend too long on this because, it's Lost Zone. Everyone knows what's going on here. But for those of you who need a wee bit of a recap, I guess, we're just throwing stuff into Lost Zone with Comfey and then swinging with Cramorant as well as Greninja at some point. Probably after we get to use our Mirage Gates, just because that's going to be a way of charging up Duplicate's Barrage. Also, interesting enough, this deck is playing 1 copy of the other Greninja EX, the really bad one that has seen absolutely no play. But for 2 Water Energy, it does do 120 and then 120 more, I believe. Don't have to quote me on this one, but I'm pretty sure it does. It's 120 and then 120 more if your opponent's active is already damaged, which is, it's all right. I don't think it's anything special. I'm not sure if it's really worth the deck slot in this deck, really, but the fact that you have like Sableye and Radiant Greninja already to do spread damage, I guess it makes it worth it. But to be honest, I'm not sure if it's worth it 100%, really. It seems a bit weird, but honestly, a very cool list overall. And, if you like Greninja, you enjoy playing Lost Zone, then this would be the perfect deck for you. So, I still wanted to feature it regardless. But yeah, swiftly moving on, however, we get to some more spicy things, which is going to be Charizard, Greninja, Pidgeot. Now, when someone initially suggested this on a video that I was watching, I thought this was a ridiculous idea. And look where we are. So guess who's laughing now, I guess. But, it's one of those things where I guess Charizard is just that good that you can really throw a 2-2 line of Greninja in the deck and it's still playable. But yeah, it's a very cool idea. And to be honest, if I was playing any build of Charizard at this point, I would want to play a build that was just interesting, And I guess if you main Charizard, if Charizard is your main deck, then you could just give us a go, right? You know, just a 2-2 line of Greninja, see how it goes. Might be quite fun. You could get some surprise wins with duplicate barrage. It's probably just obviously a wee bit more inconsistent than regular Charizard, but I still think this could be worth trying out just to see how far you get with duplicates barrage. But yeah, a very cool list overall, and we're not done with Charizard. There is one more Charizard list in this video. But yeah, pretty cool list. Next up, though, is we have my personal favorite list, and this is going to be a Greninja Froslass list. Now, if you don't know what Froslass does, it basically says, between turns, put a damage counter on each Pokemon in play that has an ability. And Greninja doesn't have an ability and spreads damage. So the synergy here is quite simply, we just stack loads of Froslass on the bench, and then Greninja just starts to board wipe. Now, what I think is a wee bit sketch about this deck is the Rotom. I get that we play Collapse Stadium, but even then, I think Rotom is a wee bit risky at 190 HP. It's also very fragile, and you're effectively saying to your opponent, yeah, KO Rotom and 2 Greninja. And in most games, we'd rather have our opponent, you know, hopefully KO Cleffa and then like 3 Greninjas after that or something, or have them like boss Froslass after KOing Cleffa. But either way, I think Rotom's a wee bit of a liability, only having 190 HP and an ability, but that's the only thing that I would be a bit skeptical about after, like, you know, trying this list out. But still a very cool list. Also playing Unfair Stamp, which is interesting to see. I'm like not sure if Unfair Stamp is really the path to go with this kind of deck, but either way, interesting to see. You know, it's cool. And of course, Greninja just having that spread synergy, I guess, with Froslass. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely one that I personally want to try out. The only problem with this deck, of course, is you need a lot of Froslass on the board very quickly to have it, to get it like doing much of an impact. But either way, very cool. Very, very cool list. And I think this is the last list that we're taking a look at today. Yep, last list. I should know this. This is my video. However, we've got an Arceus, Greninja, Pidgeot, Zard deck. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this list. It's a wee bit chaotic, but Arceus and Pidgeot make everything consistent, and we should all know that by now. So yeah, it's not surprising. I do kind of miss Arceus Charizard builds, not going to lie. I do kind of like Arceus as a Pokemon in general. It's just quite fun to use. And Greninja is a cool Pokemon as well. So yeah, this one definitely ticks all the boxes for me personally. But it's just obviously a wee bit bonkers. Is this worse than just playing Charizard, Greninja, Pidgeot? Probably. But Arceus does have its merits. It is quite nice. And it's just a bit of a shame that I guess Greninja doesn't discard energy from anywhere to use his attack. You know, that could have been, I guess, a wee bit too broken, but still would have been cool to discard energy from Arceus after charging them up. But yeah, it's a cool build. The 1-1 Charizard line feels a bit like, you know, like, are we really bothering with Charizard in this deck? But it's just such a good attacker, and it'll help pay for the attack cost. So yeah, I do respect the Radiant Charizard, though. I think that's really cool. And again, playing Unfair Stamp. So yeah. Either way, though, that's the Greninja list. Let me know what you think down below. I've definitely got a few more interesting videos coming up for this sort of thing. Dragapult will probably have to be next, to be honest. If it's not Dragapult, it's Dipplin. It's one or the other, but yeah. Thank you for watching. This has been Power. As always, let me know what you think down below. And yeah, thank you for watching.